Hello. This week we're going to learn about the levels of clinical evidence, which is this pyramid over here, which we'll learn about in a lot more detail. And we're also going to touch on primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. So there is a video here that explains the primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. So I do encourage you to pause this video and watch that clip. I'm just going to summarize what primary, secondary, and tertiary sources are. So a primary source or primary literature is basically the original research. So if I wrote a paper, let's just say I wrote a dental paper and it was my own paper, it was brand new research that I did and I wrote a paper on that, that paper is considered primary source or primary literature. So it's the original research that I published. A secondary literature or secondary source is a literature review about my original paper. So let's say you did a literature review on my original paper. That literature review that you did is considered a secondary literature or secondary source. And the reason why is because it's a summary or a synthesis of my original paper. And then lastly, we have the tertiary source or tertiary literature, which is just a very, very brief version of my paper. So maybe a paragraph might be in a textbook about my original research. So see how the primary source is very specific, it's the original one, and then the secondary source is less specific because it's just a summary of the original one. And then when we go to the tertiary source, it's even less specific because it's just a blurb, a paragraph, or a sentence or two about the original research. So this pyramid over here basically shows that the best type of source is your primary source. The higher up it is in the pyramid, the stronger the source, the better the source, the more credible the source. So primary source, your original research is the best, and the reason why is because secondary and tertiary sources could have been lost. Some things in there could have been lost in translation, which basically means that maybe when someone did a literature review on my original primary source, they probably didn't understand my topic as well. And so when they wrote some stuff about my paper, it wasn't accurate. So this is the most accurate secondary and tertiary source. There is a chance where the things written in these sources may not be as accurate. The primary source is the accurate one. It's the most specific one. It's the original one. So if there's a test question asking, what type of source is the best source, you would say primary source. Here are just some examples. So a diary, someone's diary is also considered a primary source. Any journal article that's showing new findings, so not literature review articles, but new research findings, would be considered a primary source. A secondary source is when you look at a journal or a magazine article, which is doing a review about the previous findings. So it's not brand new research, it's just a review or a summary of the previous brand new research. And then tertiary source, a good example of that are encyclopedias, Wikipedia, textbook. Those are great examples of tertiary sources. You may have heard about peer review before, and peer review basically means it's actually a process where other people, so other scientists or other experts in the field, they critique and they review the article. So let's just say that I wrote an article, and it's a dental related article, and I submitted it to the Journal of Dental Hygiene Education. Okay, so I want my article to be published in the journal. So I send it there. I email it to the publisher there. What the publisher does is they send my paper to other scientists or to other experts. And what the experts do is they read my article and they critique it. They'll say, well, this part doesn't make sense, you should go fix that. They'll say, this part doesn't, you don't have enough, there's not enough credibility in that article, find a way to make it more credible. So they'll give me advice on how I can make my original paper stronger. And that's what peer review is, where other people look at my paper, critique it, give me advice, and then it comes back to me, I change it around, I resubmit it back to them, and I hope that it's okay. And if it's not okay, they'll tell me, no, these things that need to be changed again. Comes back to me, I change it, and then I send it back to them. So it's quite a process. So peer review is anonymously done. No, I don't know who's reviewing my paper. It could be my best friend who's a hygienist, a researcher, or dental hygiene researcher, but I will never know because it's done anonymously. Several steps, because once I send it to them, they will have to send it back to me with feedback. Then I have to send it back to them. Then they might send it back to me again because I probably need to make more additions. So it's a several step process. And the articles or the publications or the journals, it will specify that the articles in the journal are peer reviewed. And how do you know? Sometimes you'll know right in the journal paper, and I'll show you an example where you'll know by looking at that paper that it's peer reviewed. Other times when you open a journal and on the inside front cover, they might have a blurb saying that all articles published in this journals are peer reviewed. Another word for peer reviewed is refereed. And again, the reason why people do the peer review process is because it makes the article stronger. It improves the credibility of that article. So we love to see peer-reviewed articles. And anytime you're reading a paper or reading an article, you want to make sure that that article is peer-reviewed, because peer-reviewed means it's credible. Peer-reviewed means that they went through the hard work to find other experts in that field and critique that article so that it's perfect before publication. So what this means is that this article that's published in the Journal of Public Health Dentistry was received on July of 2011. So the authors, which are over here, these three authors submitted it to the Journal of Public Health Dentistry in July of 2011. The journal did not accept it until June of 2012, so it took 1 year. And in that 1 year, there was a peer review process happening. Okay, so you can see it's a lengthy, it takes a long time for it to be processed, for the peer review process to happen. So this over here, if you see this in articles, that tells you that there has been a peer review process in that article.